Borya, trim the bread, Katya asked, anxiously examining the meat cooking in the oven. Her mother-in-law had decided to drop by today, and the woman tried to make a good showing. Antonina Arkadyevna's favorite salads had long since taken their place on the beautifully set table. A light wine was waiting to be served in a bucket of ice. A few more finishing touches, and they could greet the dear guest. The woman stabbed a fork into a pork chop, exuding a mind-blowing aroma, and grunted with satisfaction. The meal was a success. Her husband's mother should be pleased. She was placing the sizzling baking sheet on the stove when she heard her husband scream and burst into a voluptuous tirade. Well, I cut myself because of you, Boris concluded, raising his finger from a drop of blood. You always make me do women's work. Katya smiled conciliatorily. Well, the Queen Mother will be visiting us today. Please take part in the ceremony. Boris pouted, offended, taking a band-aid from the first aid kit, and his wife conciliatorily helped him cover the tiny wound. Of course, Katya didn't like her husband's infantilism, but over 8 years of marriage, she had grown accustomed to it, and today she decided not to start a scene over such a minor matter. Her mother-in-law's arrival could lead to much bigger problems. So why fray your nerves over trifles? After carefully examining Boris's palm for other injuries, Katya shooed her husband out of the kitchen. She would do everything quickly and without any problems. She was already finishing setting the table when the doorbell rang impatiently, and plastering one of her friendly smiles on her face, Katya rushed to answer it. Antonina Arkadyevna, the hostess chirped, accepting her mother-in-law's purse. How are you? The older woman frowned at her daughter-in-law and muttered through her clenched teeth, Not gonna happen. The women's relationship was, to put it mildly, strained. Though never escalating into open confrontation. After the wedding, Antonina Arkadyevna fumed for a long time about having to give up her son to some upstart. And then she found another sore point, the lack of children. After all, in 8 years of marriage, the young couple hadn't bothered to give her any grandchildren. And naturally, the hated dream was the blame of the lack of heirs. Oh, I barely made it, the older woman began grumbling, sitting down on the sofa. It's so hot. We could have met you. I would have understood if they were busy with the children, Han. And so, silently swallowing the jab at herself, Katya hurried to the kitchen, while Boris rushed to her mother with a hug. Come to the table, Mommy. I'll pour you some cool mineral water. He began to fawn. A smile blossomed on Antonina Arkadyevna's face. What a caring little Borenka she had. Why did you come on foot, Antonina Arkadyevna? Katya inquired, appearing in the doorway with her drink. Offered to call a taxi, we would have paid. Her mother-in-law lived just a couple of blocks away, but her daughter-in-law had truly shown concern by offering to call her relative a car. But Antonina Arkadyevna pouted. Oh, who do we have here? A millionaire, she muttered sarcastically. Borenka. He's already working himself to death, supporting the family. He buys you clothes and trinkets. He'll even pay for the taxi. Katya bit her tongue. She didn't want to irritate her already embittered mother-in-law. Yes, Boris did earn a good living at a large logistics company. Katya, however, worked as a modest project manager at a design firm and earned much less than her husband. It was precisely this circumstance that gave her mother-in-law the right to claim that her son was comfortably off her back. Oh, Mommy, Boris waved him off. We'll always do everything for you. And Antonina Arkadyevna's eyes narrowed into two angry slits. How can you do it? She hissed. How many years have I been asking you for even a penny, for a dasha? You know about my dream, right? Then you always come up with excuses. By excuses, dear Antonina, Karifna meant the account she opened, Katya, to save for the IV procedure Mirtaka. For a whole year, the woman had been putting half her salary into it. But she still had to work to get to the required amount. Katya tried to object to her husband's mother that the dasha could wait. Anyway, was it worth starting? After all. But Antonina Arkadyevna was not going to give in. Son, she let out a tragic voice. You remember how your father and I dreamed about a cozy dacha. Are you really going to betray his memory? This was her mother's favorite tactic in the art of blackmail. She would declare her latest wish to be her father's last wish. Fortunately, it was impossible to verify. Mikhail Sergeyevich had been buried in the cemetery for 5 years, and his wishes kept surfacing. And most importantly, Boris reacted so strongly that he immediately rushed to implement them. As far as Katya remembered, her father-in-law always made fun of city gardeners and even reused the plot in the gardening non-profit partnership SNT. That was his due as a retired military man. Antonina Arkadyevna became obsessed with buying a dacha after her husband's death. Perhaps she was trying to escape loneliness. How could she possibly understand this? But how could she understand her mother-in-law's desire to squeeze money out of them for her whim? The daughter-in-law was discouraged, but the mother-in-law continued to press the issue. And anyway, she pontificated one day. Katya will be able to bear me grandchildren. That's when we'll need a country house for the children to get away from the Sofakuzu city. The young woman was barely restraining herself from being rude to her beloved relative. But then Antonina Arkadyevna's office phone rang, and she began to hurriedly get ready. The hostess breathed a sigh of relief. The unpleasant topic was postponed until the next visit from the persistent relative. Katya and Boris had the next day off. They took time off specifically to go to the family planning center. However, they never managed to see all the specialists. By lunchtime, Katya's immediate supervisor called and asked her to go to the office immediately. Boris even made a disgruntled comment about her work, saying it wasn't bringing in any income and was interfering with her personal life. But Katya only smiled mysteriously. The presentation of her latest project had clearly aroused the interest of management. Moreover, the head of their department had been transferred to the head office. They must be about to offer her the position. The woman wasn't mistaken. The long-awaited position and a substantial salary increase were her reward for her hard work over the past few years. Unable to contain herself, she immediately dialed her husband. Darling, I have wonderful news. Don't go anywhere. I'll be there and tell you the details. She flew home on wings of happiness. Her dream had come true. Of course, she'd have to wait a bit with the IVF procedure. Well, she hadn't planned on putting off having children for long, darling. Katya screamed, bursting into the apartment. We have a reason to celebrate. And then Antonina Arkadyevna's voice was heard from the living room. Hello, Katya. And what reason for celebration? Katya's mood plummeted. The last thing she wanted was to discuss her big news with her unloved mother-in-law. But she pulled herself together. If her mother-in-law was here, it meant Boria had called her. Her job was to greet her new mother with dignity. Well, she couldn't start her out with her husband on such a happy day. The woman meekly headed to the stove. "Petit, tell me your big news, Antonina Arkadyevna returned to the conversation when everyone had sat down at the set-at table. And Katya, unable to remain silent any longer, began telling me about the promotion and a substantial salary increase. Now, we'll definitely soon save up for our dream. She stared at her husband with shining eyes. And her mother-in-law smiled broadly. Did they raise your salary? That's fantastic. Now you definitely owe me a favor. Katya frowned, hoping her husband's support, but Boris only chewed silently. Katyusha, come on, let's help Mom, he suddenly said, putting down his fork. I found a nice house and agreed on an installment plan with the owner. We'll use our savings for the down payment and then we'll pay it off in installments from your salary or... Katerina's eyes darkened with anger. What a twist. Those two had already figured out how to spend her new salary. She was glaring at her husband when her mother-in-law slammed her hand on the table. Katya, just imagine how wonderful it will be, she exclaimed. I'll move to the dacha and rent out my apartment, Ashkoa. My pension is poultry, and Boria spends it all on you. I'm tired of this, scraping by. Katya stared silently at her plate. The puzzle had come together. Her late husband's wish, a vacation for her future grandchildren. The puzzle was simply unraveling. Antonina Arkadyevna dreamed of earning extra income without investing a penny. I also hope her son and mother aren't in cahoots. The young woman looked sadly at her husband. But what about Boria, my child? If we give your mother the money, we won't be able to undergo the IVF procedure. What? Her husband looked away guiltily, and Antonina Arkadyevna suddenly barked. What the hell are children, Katya? At 35, no IVF treatment will help. Don't throw money away. Give it to me. Resentful of betrayal, the woman blinked, trying to hold back tears. You won't see my money, she angrily spat, jumping up from the table. Only after locking herself in the bathroom did she burst into tears. Her husband and mother-in-law were arguing loudly, but the sound of running water made it impossible to make out their words. Then everything fell silent, and Katya emerged from her refuge. The apartment was empty. An hour later, Boris called and said he was staying the night with his mother. She really wanted to have a serious talk with her husband, but she didn't ask him to come back. And in the morning, with a heavy heart, Katya went to start her new job. How many difficult thoughts she had thought about that night. That evening, Boris was already waiting for her to return from work, but there was no trace of remorse on his face. Quite the contrary, he was angry and aggressive. You know what, Katya? He blurted out, clenching his fists. I barely calmed Mom down. How dare you refuse her so rudely? The man paced the small kitchen like an enraged animal. Mommy must have told me to show some guts. And remember, he yelled, Spita, we have a shared budget, so I won't let you spend your money. He stopped in front of his wife, admiring the effect it produced, but Maître Kaika suroregai society. A shared budget, she clarified indifferently. So we'll have to split it. And Boris exploded. Counting on his fingers, he began listing all the things he'd done for the ungrateful woman while she worked for pennies. And he didn't even leave the childless idiot as his mother advised. He regretted it. Katya watched her husband scurrying about with a mixture of disgust and contempt. Lord, what a mama's boy she'd wasted 8 years of her life with. Stop being hysterical, she barked. I'm not interested in your mother's conclusions, and I'm not interested in you either. Go to her. Boris froze. He clearly hadn't expected such a rebuff. His pliable, soft Katyusha showed her teeth for the first time, and they turned out to be quite large. After blinking his eyes in bewilderment for a moment, he trudged to the door. Mom's plan had clearly failed, and Katya began sobbing inconsolably, dropping her head into her hands. Her family was crumbling like a house of cards. The joy of motherhood was simply floating past like a white ship. At least there was some serious progress in her career. Katya and Boris lived separately for several weeks. During this time, the woman clearly realized that there was nothing between them anymore, and it was useless to save the marriage. I'll leave your penniless on a future, Alulis yelled into the phone when Katya offered him a divorce, and she grinned maliciously. The divorce through the courts has not yet been cancelled. Katya's apartment was her grandmother's, so Boris cannot lay claim to it endless. Let him take the car. It's already there. There's no need, since the driver is useless. But she won't share the money raised for ecology with a cunningly constructed family. Antonin Arkadiev won't be back at his dacha, but only if he fleeces his son. Thank you for listening to the end of the story. Please support the channel with a like. It won't be difficult for you, and it's very important to me. Until next time.